Recording in progress.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Spotlight on an Awesome Leader. And I have an awesome leader here with me today, and that is Jennylee Taylor. G'day, Jen.
G'day, AJ. Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here.
It's great to have you here. And interesting, I can't believe that I haven't had a yarn to you before and interviewed you for this kind of thing, given your background and all the work that we get to do collaboratively together. So it's
known each other about 4 years now.
Yeah, something like that. It feels like much longer. We've probably experienced a lot together, and so the depth, I think, is more like a longer term friendship. And so I wanted to bring Jennylee or Jen on today to talk a bit about leadership, but also from a bit of a different perspective, because she has a blending of some different backgrounds, as well as some of the journey that you've been on in the most recent years, that I just think brings a really different lens to thinking about leadership from a corporate perspective, but also just from a life and a human being perspective. And so that's what I'm really interested in kind of digging into a bit today.
Yeah.
So for starters, I know you've come from the shipbuilding industry. I know you've done project management and those sorts of things, and that you're an amazing breathwork practitioner now, and you teach others to do that. We've also walked country together here around Australia and done a lot in the bush as well, and with elders together. So maybe if you can rewind back to the start and the shipbuilding part, and just where did your career start? How is it transitioned?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I started my career in about 1984 as an apprentice boat builder. And the reason I got into that was I grew up on a farm and was very practical. I've got 3 brothers, because was very tomboyish and that kind of thing. And when I got back from a trip from overseas when I was younger, I was looking for work. And my first real job, apart from the farm life, was a Commonwealth employment project. And in the 80s, they were doing a lot of, who's that woman under the hard hat, sort of promoting about women taking on alternative roles to the typical,
the non-traditional,
the non-traditional roles. So I was able to get a work Commonwealth employment program, which was up at Port Scratchley here in Newcastle, refurbishing one of the lifeboats up there that used to ply the waterways in the 1800s.
Wow.
So, and that was my first taste of woodwork and things like that. And then that led to being worked on in the bicentenary year. They were building a replica of Australia's first steamship up near Raymond Terrace, which is where I grew up. So I just went in there, and I went in there one day and I saw this man look at the back end of this ship that they were building, and kind of do this sort of thing with his hand. And you could tell that there was years and years and years of experience in these movements. And then he sort of marked out this piece of wood in the workshop, and it was the transom, which is the back end of the ship. And when he cut it out, he put it up there and it fitted.
Wow.
And it was just like phenomenal. He took a few measurements, that kind of thing. And I just thought, I want to be able to do that.
Wow.
So I just annoyed them for about a month every day, saying, can you please give me an apprenticeship? And, back then it was kind of like, oh, I don't know about that. You're a woman.
You're a woman.
But one of the key things to my whole career has been people just giving me the chance to prove myself in a way. Not even prove myself, but just giving me a go. Give me a go. So when they saw how committed I was to annoying them, they eventually put me on as an apprentice, and that was a 4-year apprenticeship. But that sort of started me off.
Wow.
And I love doing that work. So for 25 years, I've been in an industry where I was literally the only woman on site. So when we were building ships for the Navy in the late 1990s and early 2000s, there was 500 people on site. So they had a few women engineers, which was really great. Not a lot of women who were trade trade
based,
trade based and on the practical side of life.
Yes.
So I ended up being the planning manager there, and throughout my whole career over that 25 years, I think one of the keys has been that because I worked with all men, so men gave me a chance.
Wow.
Saw in something in me that maybe I didn't see in myself at the time, and just said, you know, you can do it.
Yes.
Here's the chance. So
that's awesome.
Really good, yeah.
And it's really interesting because it reminds me of a lot of the research and studies that actually show sometimes men get ahead in their career quicker because they play golf or they go yachting or they go to the pub, and other guys go, oh, you want to hand up with that, and they open doors and opportunities. And often traditionally women didn't seem to have the mechanism to do that or the conversation around those things so much. So it's really interesting that influenced your career. Speaking of that, mentors, who's shaped part of that leadership and who has been part of that journey?
Well, I think it was Ken Wickner, and I'm going to name names here because Ken Wickner's passed now, bless him, but he was the one who said yes to giving me the apprenticeship, and so really open-minded around that. And also my TAFE teacher at the time, when I looked into enroll for TAFE, he said, oh, can I help you? So,
are you in the right room? Yeah.
Enroll in shipbuilding. He's just gone, wow, that's fantastic. That kind of response I got all the time. And then one person in particular who I followed him through my whole career. He would move on to different things, and then he'd bring me up and headhunt me, if you like, and go, I've got this job. And I said, oh, that feels like a bit of a step up. Do you reckon I could do it? He goes, yeah, you could do it standing on your head. So that sort of, I feel like I've been led in a way, and really given a hand up.
That's awesome.
Through my whole career.
And kind of borrowed the confidence from what they had in you.
Yeah, it's really interesting because when I look back on it, I think I was a reasonably confident person, but when there's that little stretch and you go, can I really, I'm up to this stage of my career, what do I need? And just having that work ethic, I think, and people seeing in you something that you can do. And I think I've taken that on board in terms of in my career, when I've been able to get into more senior positions, looking for those people around me as well, men and women, and being able to go, okay, identify that person and having chats to them and really building that pathway for other people as well. Yeah.
So doing that reciprocity and giving back to others and giving them a hand up.
That's been
amazing.
Yeah.
And I find that really interesting because there's that research that also shows that typically men will apply for a job if they meet at least 3 of the 6 criteria, whereas women will go, I have to meet all 6 before I can apply. So it's great that you had some males and mentors there to kind of nudge you along. And when we're thinking about leadership, it does come down to confidence, competence, and credibility. And so it sounds like you definitely had lots of confidence that they saw in you, and credibility from what you'd done before. And maybe it's just that borrowed confidence.
Borrowed confidence,
yeah.
But then once you stretch yourself, the confidence builds within as well. And then you get to a point where I was just thinking, actually, the one area that I think that I could have done better the whole way along was really understanding that I was worth more.
Wow. Yeah. That's huge. Yeah. Tell me more about that.
Well, I often hear men are, they've got the bravado to go, go to the boss and go, I think I'm worth a pay rise.
Right.
I never did that. But I ended up getting them anyway. And I've kind of thought about it over the years, whether it was because people did see the value in me and give it to them anyway, but I could have probably had projected myself further quicker if I'd asked.
Right. And I'm wondering who's listening, and we do have some people online, so feel free to drop in the chat box, but can anyone relate to that whole not actually asking for the pay rise or the opportunity or the project, or even if you're getting given too much work, like actually saying that's enough and let's look at what's on my plate. Yeah. So that's a great lesson.
A great lesson, yeah.
Now you've had that realization. Has it influenced anything now?
Well, now I'm a business owner and realizing my own value in terms of what I charge out myself. And I think that's the big key. And that was a little bit of a journey as well. But it really is about understanding your own worth and your own value, and understanding that you have the work ethic, and you've done the hard yards to learn, and you're good at your skill or whatever it is. Absolutely. And being able to be confident enough to put that out, because it's all energy, right? So if people don't see you valuing yourself, they don't want to pay you that either. But it comes back to that. Yeah.
And for anyone who's listening who's in their own business or has ever run their own business before, I'm sure you can agree and feel into that, because that certainly is a lesson, I think, for all of us, is that undercharging or underselling ourselves. And especially if you worked for a big company in the past and you had kind of the big logo behind you, it's easier to charge something. And then when you go into business for yourself and it's like, I'm now seeing that as a representation of my value, it is more challenging, I think, to charge for yourself. Yeah. To actually put a price on that. And I was having a conversation actually with a fellow facilitator this week, and he'd had some pushback from a client saying, I can get a trainer to train my people in that, like, in modules and things for half the price. Why are you so expensive? And we were talking about the art of facilitation and that, and also leadership, that is a little bit different to management, but actually being able to read the room and to respond to whatever's going on, rather than going, I have set curriculum and I just need to teach these modules. There's an art in going into a room and not knowing what's going to come up and being able to just flex with that. And that's years of experience. It's not just that I can tick a box. So there's loads in that to unpack.
And it's not just about learning the content. It's about, because you learn more just by being with a person in a room, especially if they've had lots of experience. And I think we're talking here about steward eldership as well.
Yes.
What value do you put on those years of experience that come with being able to grow and change and see where the pitfalls are and see where the successes are, and that wisdom that comes with having done that.
Yeah.
What value do you put on that?
Absolutely. And that's probably where I'd like to go next. And I will just say, I still love that you have the practical side as well. We were late last year camping together in Queensland with some elders and a group of people, and we were learning rope tying and all different rope tying, and also how to build your own shelter and those sorts of things. And I have to say, I was so glad Jen was there, because she had so many ideas and already knew her rope tying skills, and was fabulous when we were all trying to put this big structure up and it was leaning over. It was Jen that knew how to anchor it down and balance it out. So we were very lucky to have her with us, or we might have all been, it was fun, sleeping under the stars. But I'd love to dig in a bit more to that steward eldership and this concept of, we become a manager, and that's often very tactically based. Then we move into more leadership, which is more like coaching and empowering and growing others. But then there's this beautiful transition to eldership, and how that might relate, and some of the lessons you've had walking country, sitting with elders, and in your experience now in a breathwork practitioner space, of where do you see the need for that now in organizations? Are you seeing it, and where do you see it in the world, the need for that? Well, and how are you responding, I guess?
Yeah, it's a big question. And I think there's a place for, it's kind of like the grandfather and grandmothership. And if you look at the family unit and how that works, as parents, we have children, and often we're off doing the day-to-day, worrying about getting them to school, putting clothes on them, getting them fed, getting them to all their school activities, that kind of thing. And we're too busy to do that sort of baseline mentoring. You know, and usually the parents are the one who are disciplining and setting boundaries and all that sort of stuff. But when the grandparents can come in and, you know, hand out the lollies, so the parents
rile the kids up.
That's the thing. But there's also, you know, where do the kids go? In terms of if there's a problem with the parent, it's great to be able to talk to them, but sometimes you can't. So you need someone to that outlet. So going to an elder in the community to go, you know, this is how I'm feeling. This is the problem I'm having. You know, mum's this and dad's this, and you know, just to get that wisdom from a grandparentship. And we translate that into business. You know, you might have an upline manager that you're having a problem with. Is there someone in the business that you can go to privately and confidentially and just have that chat to at least be heard and listened to, and maybe given some advice around how to handle it, not necessarily make a big scene of it, but just be able to, you know, bring forward or draw on the wisdom of others of how they may have handled a similar situation. And you know, and as I'm a grandparent as well, and as a grandparent and a mother, I also know that anything the kids do, I probably did 10 times worse when I was a kid, and that I know all the tricks in the so I think they're getting away from it, and I'm sure my grandparents,
there's no alcohol at the party,
exactly, that kind of thing. So you know, I think there's there's a whole heap of wisdom at the moment locked up in aged care homes. And people just see older people as old people, not as elders.
Yes.
It's a big difference between that. And one of the key, that's really landed with me recently, when my mother's in View Club and she's 83, and she had an Indigenous woman come in and speak to them about eldership. And she addressed everyone in the room as an elder.
Wow.
It was the first time that, and because normally when you see an older person, then people go, you know, they've hunched over or they can't walk properly. And for some reason, there's a correlation that they have no life experience. They haven't had a life.
Right.
Got nothing to draw on.
Their value is less.
Their value is, yes. So when they got addressed as elders, she said, everyone sat up in the room. It's really, really interesting. And vice versa. I think there's lots that we can learn from the younger ones coming through, because young people know technology and what they need in the world. So there's a real reciprocity, I think, that has to happen, and to really build community, and translating that into the workplace. You know, I think we need to be looking at how we do that more.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I think I'm seeing opportunity, and I'm seeing a couple of organizations starting to look at that transition and having someone work maybe only 2 or 3 days a week as they're moving normally into retirement. And so they don't lose that knowledge from the organization, but they move into positions where they don't necessarily have direct line reports or any of that kind of a team under them anymore. And they're more of a floater who actually helps troubleshoot and becomes that person that shares their knowledge of the industry or of the organization, and also starts to mentor some of the younger generation. So I do think there's a real space there.
That mentorship program is and you know, there's so much corporate knowledge walks out the door when someone leaves a business who's been there for a long time.
Absolutely.
And it's not about, you know, sometimes when you're in a business for a long time, you can get stale around how to move forward, and that's why there's a two-way conversation between the eldership and the young ones to go, that might have been okay, you know, for you for the past 50 years, but we need to be doing it differently. Yet there's some knowledge that the elder can give on how to move through that process of change.
And totally, I think even just community-wise as well, when you actually look at the demographic of all the small businesses, and we're here in Australia, if you look at how many small businesses there are, it's something like 80% of them are owned by baby boomers. And a lot of those are actually in the trades and things as well. There's a lot of plumbers and lecos and people like that, and chippies, that are going to go and retire soon. And if they don't have family or someone, and often for many of them, they don't even think of they could sell their business. So there's a whole heap of businesses that serve everyone in community that are going to shut down soon, and who's going to replace them. So I do think there's some transition happening. It's wonderful to hear about your mum's experience, and I can imagine them all puffed up a bit being called elders. I'm wondering if we can transition a bit to some of the breath work that you do now. And I appreciate, you know, what you do with people is confidential, but I'm wondering if in general you can share a bit of what are some of the realizations or the things that are coming out of that space? Because in a society where we're all rushing all the time and we're bombarded with so much, you know, breath work, I think, is this gift of spaciousness to drop in deeper. And so what are some of the things you're noticing with the work you do there that's coming through with people, and where do you see that going?
Well, a big part of it is
take a breath. You see it, take a breath.
It's really, this is where
you want to get out of the sun. Are you right? Where she's in the sun a bit there.
So this is where my soul work is now, and this is kind of where I think I'm going. This is where I'm adding value to community, is that, and the people I work with come to me from all walks of life, usually with something not working in their life, whether it's being overwhelmed at work, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a death in the family, whether it's whatever, you know, all the things that life can throw at us that leave us a little bit out of sorts at times. But what I generally find is that people are so disconnected to who they are right now. And
it's me.
And part of that is, you know, because often life's so busy that we end up living life from the head up, you know, always thinking about the next thing we have to do, where the kids are, what do we have to do at work. You know, there's this overwhelm is what I hear a lot. And people are disconnected to the way they feel. They're disconnected to what's truly matters in life. It kind of runs on this roller coaster of just doing life rather than being able to stop and really reconnect back to themselves. And I think that if one of the biggest things I've learned in my whole career is to be authentic, to be yourself, and to not make any not be falsifying yourself. And just to be yourself. You know, like I'm not a makeup worker person, and I would normally in the past I would have thrown a bit of this on to look great, but you know what, that's not me. At the end of the day, it's not me, and you either take me as I am or don't take me at all, and I really don't mind either way.
Actually, often in a flannel as well. Like I did think in country. I love it.
And you know, it's not, and there's no, and what happens is the world judges us so much, and so there's this desire or need or something happens within us where we say we have to be something different to what we really are. And in the workplace, you know, that translated for me in the workplace over the years as a woman, particularly working in a men's field. I love what I do. I love everyone I work with, but I found that I had to at times get really angular, like sharp-edged, to be able to, not even butch, but just masculine. That's the way I put it. You know, that masculine part of ourselves that comes out. And,
linear and direct.
And that kind of thing. And really, I'm not that person. I'm really much more, you know, softer on the inside and not weak. Powerful, but doing it in a more feminine way, I guess. And I think that's where I see a lot of career women come through, and I think that's where they're going. I just want to be able to be myself in the workplace. I just want to be able to be myself. And often
everyone's probably going,
often the judgment not only comes from the self-perception of how people think they need to behave to fit in. I think there's a lot of that, but also that comes as a result of being judged by others, men and women. Women in particular can be really severe judges. So I'm just saying,
I've decided probably been my biggest lesson is women can be really snarky and bitchy.
And so I mean, let's have an honest conversation around it. So and
what's that saying? There's a special place in hell for women who pull down other women.
Oh,
okay. Yeah.
But it depends on the industry as well, because there's certain industry types. I worked with a lot of defence people, and they're all in suits all the time, and they're
got their badges.
Yeah, got their badges, and it's all about rank. I'm this rank and I do this and that kind of thing, and it's kind of like I don't really care.
Yeah. You're human, I'm human.
And the work now is that it's really landed with me that everyone is just human. We're all just human. Everyone, doesn't matter if you're the CEO of a company or the admiral of an army. You have a family, you have teenage kids that are driving you up the wall, you have grief, you have a mortgage, you have grief in your family, things happen and life happens. You may lose a child, you may, all sorts of things. Life just happens. And it's a real level up. Life is a real level up. So I support people to really work and express that and work the energy of what's being held in that through the body, because it's all about emotions. Sorry, people, but we're humans and we have emotions. There should be no judgment around that, and usually people get uncomfortable. It amazes me how uncomfortable generally our society is about being able to sit with someone who is grieving, for instance.
Yes.
But I don't know how to handle this, so
I'm not trying to just fix it or whatever.
Yes, next to the person who's having a cry. I actually woke up the other morning, I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could get to a place that workplaces have a special room with some plants, some water flowing, some cushions where people can just go and have a cry.
Yeah, crying rooms. Like they used to have for babies in the back of theatres.
And it might
need an adult's crying room. Yeah.
It actually might seem way out, but if you think about how humans process emotions, when we have a traumatic event in our life, our body's response is to emote. That's how we move the energy of that traumatic, that's our body's natural way of regulating our system. So when we don't do that, it just doesn't go away. It actually just stay there and trapped. And over years and years and years, this is why people lead to burnout, lead to breakdowns. It's just all this emotion that gets stuck in the body leads to, I'm just going to push your button today and you're going to fly. Yeah. So, and I know I've done it at work, that I just wanted to have a cry. If I'd been if I'd had a place to go and just go bawl for 5 minutes, I would have come back and it'd been fine, because the energy had cleared it.
Yeah.
It might sound way out there, but it's a great idea.
Why not? I mean, they have prayer rooms.
Yeah.
Same sort of thing. Let's have crying rooms. And
or just to be able to sit and collect
a space.
A
space. And that's part of, isn't it, modern work and life, is there's no space. There's another 100 emails waiting for you. Someone's messaging you and texting you, and you're like, I can't even process the last moment, and you're already cramming me with another 100,000 things, And so any wonder people and mental health crisis is really gone off the Richter scale. I love your comment of just sitting with someone. And for me, that's a bit of what the steward eldership thing is the elders I've sat with have a spaciousness around time.
Yeah.
And whereas a leader or manager might be, okay, next thing and next deliverable, it feels like when we have those moments with someone who's more in that eldership role, there's a spaciousness with how they hold the timing of that. And it's not like a rush to the solution. It's a sitting with the knowing or the grief or whatever it is. And so I'm interested in, and people may not know exactly what breath work means. They might be like, well, we all breathe, or maybe that's what you do at yoga. But how does the breath work support people with releasing this emotion, or what does that look like in a session with someone?
It's actually, it's all about creating space. So, breath is something that we need to power our physiology, but there's also an energy that comes with breath, and in different, chi and in yoga and pranayama, it all talks about breath having an energy, and it's life energy comes in. So, so when we connect our breathing consciously to our body's intelligence, those two things together bypass what you think you know at a conscious level or an awareness level in your mind to go and find so much more information that's in the body, because our body is actually a library of everything we've ever done in our life, the minute we were conceived until now. So there's this massive archive in our body that knows everything. And whilst we think we can't remember a memory before, say, 4 years old, our body actually remembers. So
totally, I always say to people, can you remember maybe chewing on a piece of wood or eating a dirt ball as a kid? Sounds weird, right? Or, the taste or the feel of a toy in your mouth, you can still kind of remember that, can't you?
Yeah.
So it's completely
when I remember I bought some grapes long ago, and these grapes were different, and I put them in my mouth, and I thought, oh my God, I just remembered my grandfather's grapes that he used to grow. I haven't tasted these for so long.
Right.
This particular variety of grapes. But so our body literally does keep the score. And when we're so someone might come in around, I'm just feeling generally overwhelmed in life and really can't understand why this keeps happening, want to move through it. So a breathwork session looks like it's breathing for an hour in a particular way, connecting your breath, and literally just giving yourself the space to allow the breath to have a conversation with the body memory and go, where is it that I need to release, or let energy move through, or release emotions around why I keep getting stuck in this loop of getting overwhelmed all the time. Because life isn't about how you react to it, it's how you relate to it. So someone who's done a lot of internal work will be able to relate to life rather than react to life. And that's where the stewardship comes in as well. Is being able to have the memory of whatever it was that caused some disharmony without the emotional or the voltage attached to it anymore. Because we actually don't want to forget our memories, because it makes up who we are today. Yet we can, through this process, learn how to relate to them in a different way. So still have the memory and go, okay, that's actually not got any voltage attached to it anymore. I can move forward without having to go back there all the time.
So I'm hearing not detachment from it, but integration. Without it then being a triggered thing that when I touch that again, there I am. And you've moved that through when you can speak about that event without sort of getting out of sorts or whatever it is. And so like what that brings to me, and in a way, and I've had a breathwork session which was phenomenal, and I saw imagery and had, I guess, insights and vision that came from, I guess, my higher self or my child, I don't know, but I had all this stuff come through that I'm like, wow, I don't access this normally on a day-to-day. And you think an hour doesn't seem that long, but it really is, and there's a lot you can process in an hour. But I'm thinking about all of that stuck trauma, and as a facilitator that works in culture in organizations, a lot of the disputes and issues I see in organizations is a whole heap of people running around with still their childhood and teen stuff stored and not processed, and their life stuff sitting there. And so there's all these humans just knocking into each other. My stuff is hitting your stuff. And so I'm going, the gift of breath work or whatever the process is would be so helpful, that we really don't deal with emotions and clearing them well in organizations. And even with our children, supporting them to, you know, there's such a rise in ADHD and all of those kind of diagnoses. How do we support people to clear that stuff, or to know it and feel it and be okay with it and sit with it so that they can move on?
I love that you said that in business, because at the end of the day, wherever we work, it's a corporation or a business or whatever, but it's made up of humans. Yeah. And in our work, in this work, we say, if you want to learn more about yourself, go into a relationship with someone.
Yeah.
And often because that other person will bring up everything that's not working in you. And often we talk about partnerships, but you have lots of different relationships in your life. So you build relationships at work. And whilst you don't necessarily need to get into, you know, the private parts of everyone's life, if everyone took responsibility for looking after their own stuff and inner healing, I think that's one of the three things I've learned in my career. One is deciding to be myself and not making any excuses for that, not comparing myself to others. And the big one is taking responsibility for how I relate to the world. And that means, for me, it means actually doing the inner work. I think that's moving forward. That's where we collectively is a good place to start. You know, I do some specific work around bringing back parts of people's selves that they've either given away or have split off. And, you know, people become fragmented over their life. So I do a lot of that as well. And in business, if we can, number one, recognise that we have humans. We're working with humans.
Yes.
And that's a great thing.
Not human resources, head count, numbers.
You know, and people are often just trying to survive. You know, they're just trying to protect themselves. They're trying to feel safe. And that's why, you know, disharmony can happen in the workplace. And if we all take responsibility of working out what triggers that and sorting it out in our own self, then we can come to work without bringing all that with us and create more rather than defend. Absolutely. I don't know if anyone else has worked in a workplace where you have to spend most of your day defending what you do. You know, that kind of thing.
Well, and all the research shows the impact that our immediate boss has on our environment. So if anyone's ever worked for a manager or leader, and we might label them a poor manager, but usually it is just what you're saying, someone who hasn't learned how to take responsibility and heal their own stuff, then they can't hold space for us.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, in a way, as much as we don't sign up for it in business, leaders are healers, and they need to first heal themselves. And when we look at tools like we both use and others would be familiar with, is the LSI, the Human Synergistics LSI. When you look at that, like the blue self-actualized leader is someone who really has just gone deeper.
Yeah.
The deeper you go, the higher your team can go. And so there's a real, you know, backed by research, there's a real link there between the deeper a leader has processed their self, has dealt with their traumas, or is able to be more conscious, the greater everyone in that team benefits from being around it.
And you can start to see it. You can start to see the truth of it for everyone else. And as the leader, then, you know, go, okay, that person's not really, that's not their personality. It's just something that's hit a chord in them today.
Yeah.
And be
little
able
human.
To, a little human, you know. And, you know, you can't solve it. You can't solve it for others, but there's a more compassionate allowance for people being human, I think, in the workplace that comes around that, and recognising and saying, okay, I'm seeing you having a bad day today. What can we, you know, go and sit in the quiet room for 5 minutes, collect your thoughts, and how can we move forward and get this job done
right now?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think lastly, I'd love to end on a little bit about some of the elders, without naming names, that we've had the privilege to journey through. And Jen and I have both been journeying with some elders and learning the lessons of the wisdom of Indigenous culture. And I'd love to hear your, I guess, biggest takeaway or learning through that. I know for me, hearing you talk about this topic right now, what I observe with how elders hold space is quite often we're in circles sitting around the campfire, things come up for people through those triggers. And what I love seeing is how the elders help them process and support them. And it's unique and different for every person, and how they support them through a process with absolutely no judgment. You know, and so people can bring up the most heinous, crazy, you know, things that you're like, wow, I can't believe they just shared that. And the elders will still hold them like a grandmother, with love, with dear one, let's process that. And a lot of them have shared with us that in the past, what they would have done is the women of a tribe, when there had been a lot of trauma or grief over a period of time in a tribe, would go and away from camp and would literally do wailing, would go and cry and wail and go out on country
on behalf of the community,
on behalf of the whole tribe and community, and in order to process the grief or the emotion that was being stored in the community, so that then they could come back and then they'd go, okay, now we can pack up and move, or wherever we're going to go. But they knew how important that processing was, and somewhere in our modern life we've missed that. So I'd just love to hear any of your reflection, because I know it's moved me so many times watching them artfully just support someone.
I think one of the biggest and first lessons I learned was to listen.
Oh yeah.
I remember initially sitting with an elder, and you know, I was that person who had so many questions all the time. I don't know if that's you, AJ. I was the one who always asked the questions, and I think I always sometimes ask the questions on behalf of other people, because I thought no one else is going to ask this, I'll ask it anyway. This person, this elder, was sharing some knowledge, and he must have seen me going like this, you know, I want to put my hand up, and he just said, if you're asking a question, you're not listening. And I went boom. And so that put me on a whole 12 or 18 months of, I'm just going to listen more. And what I found was that letting people tell their story right to the end, I found that most of my questions were answered throughout the story, and I didn't need to interrupt and ask the question, you know. So that was one thing. Then I learned to listen to myself and really listen to my body, what it was telling me, what my heart was telling me, that kind of thing. And then I learned to listen to land and the country and get responses from that. And you're right, sitting around the circle, I think the grandmothers that we've sat with and all the elders we've sat with, men and women, have all of those attributes. That's their number one, is listening. And not just listening for the surface, listening for that deep listening that comes from what's really happening here, what's really happening here. And when you do that, you don't have that knee-jerk reaction to things, and then you can just sit back and often everyone's in circle waiting for a response, and you can just feel the energy of the women going and the men and women going, I'm just processing what's actually happening here and drawing on my wealth of experience, my eldership, my steward eldership, my understanding of how the world works and my life and all the things that I've had. And then they come out with the answer. Or they facilitate the change and the moving through of what the person actually needs who's sitting there. So it's real, and it's a much gentler process. It's not that process of I've got the answer and this is what you're going to do kind of thing. It's really responding, and it's a reciprocity with the person who's having that shift to go, you can see that, let's be led by what's happening with them rather than me telling you what the answer is. And it's a beautiful process.
And I think it's 60,000 years of, continual learning, and that often in business and Western culture, we have from what I'm hearing you say, is an eagerness to get to the point. Like, what's the answer? And so we want to jump in, and I've certainly been chipped for asking too many questions a number of times, because it's that eagerness to know. And the knowing is in the sitting. The knowing is even in the space. And when you hear what they're calling on in an answer, whether that's tuning into the song lines, you'll observe them, watch and go, a bird just landed. What's it telling me? And they're interpreting everything around, and sometimes not even responding. And so for so many of us brought up in a Western world, there's a discomfort in that, because we're like, no one's speaking, what's going on, you know?
And we want to fill the silence. That old pregnant pause, everyone gets really uncomfortable. And someone said to me, one of my mentors said to me, the first one speaks losers. The first one who speaks losers in this. And I think the other thing that just dropped in for me then was we think we know everything with our conscious mind, because we learn, we take courses, we learn things, we think we need to draw on that. And what we forget is that there's this universal field around us that has the memory of everything that's ever happened. It's in the water, it's in the trees, it's in the plants, it's in the animals. And we forget that we can tune in a different way that it's not necessarily verbal, and get information from that. And that's what I see the Indigenous people all around the world have the ability to do, because they sit and they listen. And they hear what we can't hear. So, definitely. It's definitely been a life change.
It's like that stream of life, and they're able to be in it and with it, whereas we're always trying to get on a boat, get quicker to the end.
And if you think of it, if you're a parent or an auntie or an uncle in your own family, what if you just did a practice of, for a week, I'm just going to listen deeply to what's happening in my family, rather than just try to create answers all the time. And in business, in the workplace, let's just listen for a bit. What's actually happening when there's a crisis at work? What's actually happening? Is it really that, or is it really something else? Well, that's what we need.
Listen to the customers. Really listen to what they're not saying or they are saying.
Because often what's not said is much more important than what is said.
Totally. So I'm conscious we're kind of coming to the end. And there were so many things that I know of, and I'm like, oh, I'd love you to tell that story. But I'm like, always whatever comes out is perfect. I'd love to kind of wrap up with, what are you grateful for right now, and what are you excited about?
I'm excited about life.
I
just think we live in the most extraordinary times. There's lots of change happening. We can often be led into what's not working in the world, but there are so many things that are working, and so many opportunities, and so much more expansion to happen. So I'm really, really excited about that. What was the other question?
Grateful.
What am I grateful for? I'm grateful for having love in my life, from family, from friends, from partners, from everybody that I know. And I'm grateful for being able to give love.
And you do. Thank you. Thank you for journeying with us today and sharing your insights and lessons. And I'm feeling maybe there'll be another, because there's more. There's more.
So much
more to go. And thanks for your love. It's good doing life with other good humans.
It is.
So for anyone who wants to find you and is curious about the breath work, can you share? And of course we'll put in show notes and things, but just where can people find you online or however?
My website is, I just rebranded as me, jennyleetaylor.com.au. And I'm all about being authentic. So you can find what I do there. I do work with nature. I'm a breathwork trainer. I sit for people in breathwork, and just call and have a chat. That's where it all starts.
You won't be sorry. Thanks again, Jen. Cheers.